Hey man, what's up? What's happening? You already know who it is and what it is. It's your boy Nephew Q, host of the world's most dangerous sports show, Beyond the Game, and we have another special guest on the line. But before I get to our special guest, let me go ahead and introduce my contemporaries, my constituents, my compadres in the building. We got to my right, y'all left, who's watching via Facebook Live and Twitter Live and YouTube Live and all the lives out there. I have Ralph Clay in the building. Clay, what's happening?
What's up, my brother? What's up, world? Let's get to it.
You see I left that out everything else because your boy Brian is down bad right now. He's down 0-2 right now.
He's doing what I expected him to do.
Ralph, not today.
Okay.
Not today.
We got a guess.
We got company in the building today, man. Your boy KD, he doing all right?
Hey, he's struggling.
He's struggling. He's in the same boat.
He don't look the same.
You know, he had 20 points last night.
Right. He don't look like he wants it. But we'll get into it. But he don't look like he wants it.
We'll save that conversation for another day and time. But anyways, we have in the building a Lexington legend in the sports and media entertainment world. We have Oscar Woodall in the building. Oscar, go and introduce yourself, my guy.
Peace, everybody.
Hey, peace, everybody.
Peace and chicken grease.
Peace and chicken grease.
Save me a piece. I'll be there shortly.
Hey, man, save all of us a piece.
I'm trying to say a little hot sauce.
Save me some brown beans and rice.
Hey, oh, wow.
I'm a breast man myself. But anyways.
Hey, don't send my mind to the gutter.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do apologize. But anyways, we have on the line special guest, UK former assistant coach, former NBA player, former assistant coach with the Boston Celtics. Former player. Hey, talk to him, Ralph. We have Mr. Winston Bennett on the line. Mr. Bennett, how you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, man, thank you for coming on the show today. We ain't going to take up too much of your time. We just want to get into, little UK action, maybe a little Boston Celtics things here and there, talk about that as well.
But a lot of UK.
A lot of UK, yeah, because, we have a lot of UK fans in the building, but we ain't going to, we ain't going to talk about the other guy in the building.
Hey, Bennett, I got to warn you now. Brother Q is anti-UK.
Come on.
So I got to give
Thank you for warning. Thank you for warning.
At any given time, he's going to take a cheap shot.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, y'all got me all wrong. Y'all painted me all wrong, man.
Hey, he's a Carolina man, and he's got a shirt on to back himself up.
They got me all wrong, but we're going to take you back before we bring you to the present tense and time. But and one of my followers, well, not one of my followers, but one of the people who follow the Beyond the Game show, they have a question. His name is Eric Girton. He wants to know, you went to UK, you from Louisville. He wants to know, how in the heck did U of L let you go and get to UK?
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing Louisville could do about it, essentially. I grew up a Louisville fan, of course, being here in Louisville and watching the likes of Dr. Duncanstein, Darrell Griffith, and BT, Bobby Turner by his side, and, even guys that came way before then. So I was a huge Louisville fan and still am. But the only thing that they could not do anything about was the fact that I was an only child and needed to get away from home to grow up a little bit. And 75 miles away was the perfect opportunity for me to be just far enough, but yet just close enough that I can get back home to mama's cooking if I need to.
She got some chicken and grease and brown beans and rice, brother?
Yeah, man, you're sounding good on that.
Well, one day I'm gonna get up there to Louisville. We're gonna go to Mama's house and get some chicken and some. What'd you say, Q? A breast?
Yeah, I'm a breast man. I'm a chicken breast man. That's so much meat right there, but we on the air. I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Hey, Bennett, I tell you what, I'll buy the chicken if Mama cook it for us.
That sounds good.
Okay, good. All right. We got a bet.
Mr. Bennett, so I want to talk a little bit about high school really quick. You was a McDonald's All-American, Parade All-American. Talk to me a little bit about that experience of playing an All-American game, and who also played. I know you shared the MVP honors, but who also participated in that McDonald's All-American game?
Man, you really tested me. That's been, I don't know how many years. What a great honor it was. I think for any young person like myself that grows up playing the game of basketball, you can only hope, only dream to be selected to play in the McDonald's All-American game. Before I forget, guys like Pearl Washington, who ended up playing at Syracuse, Reggie Williams, who played at Georgetown, Dallas Comagees, who also played in that game, played for DePaul. Let's see, who else? Kenny Smith, I think, was in that group. But yeah, just some great names, man, and great people as well as basketball players.
And out of all those people, including Kenny Smith, you were the star of stars because, like I said, you shared co-MVP. What had you do in that game since you was co-MVP? I know you don't forget that.
No, I mean, I don't know in terms of points and all that. Thank you for bringing that up. Again, it was an honor, man. You know, and all praises to my teammates. Anytime that you're able to achieve something of that nature, it's not something in isolation. It's a team game. So evidently I must have had it going a little bit that game, and my guys was finding me. And I just happened to put it in the hole that night. So all thanks to my teammates.
Yeah, there it is.
All right. Well, Bennett, Oscar here. You and I go, like my hairline, you and I go way back. Or maybe not way back, but we go back far enough. And I've always told you how much I appreciate.
Have receded a little bit over the years, Oscar.
Well, I've always told you how much I appreciate knowing you and being able to call you friend. I've always told you that every time I see you, and I'm going to do it again.
Man, I'm honored, man, and I'm humbled by it. Thank you.
Yeah. Boys, let me tell you a quick story that I always remind Bennett of. My grandmother passed away when Kentucky State came to play Morehouse, and that's when Bennett was the head coach at Kentucky State. And Winston, you might not remember the score because I don't, but I do remember this much. Morehouse took you guys and wiped up the floor with you.
Wow. Yeah. Why'd you have to bring that up?
Well, I got to give a little backstory. So I'm sorry about that. I don't like bringing it up, to be honest with you.
No problem.
But anyway, I had shared with you that my grandmother had passed away back up this way. And I got caught short trying to get an airfare to get back up this way. And I asked you if you'd let me ride the bus back here. And you were gracious enough to bless me with that request to say, yeah, I can ride the bus. But you told me I had less than 30 minutes to get home, get my bags, and get back to get ready. And I said to you, I'm already packed. Because I assumed you would let me do that, knowing what I knew about you at that point. And it turned out to be everything I was told turned out to be true. Because I got on the bus. And after that loss, the bus was about as quiet as a mouse peeing on cotton.
Wow.
And you weren't particularly happy either, because like I said, that was not an easy loss to take.
Right.
And then one of the guys spoke up and broke the ice and started talking about how the other guys wasn't playing defense. And then you stood up in the front of the bus and said, none of y'all played defense. And then one of the other guys said, well, Coach, how are you going to tell us how to play defense when Michael Jordan lit you up for 41 points? and everybody broke out laughing. He's talking about breaking the silence, and everybody broke out laughing. But then you had a good comeback. You stood up back in the front of the bus and said, ain't no shame in my game because Michael Jordan got everybody for 41 points at least once, so I ain't ashamed.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. And to add insult to injury is that Mike actually got 69 that game. He scored 65 on me in the second half. I held him to 4 in the first half. And in the second half, he came out and was Michael Jordan.
Okay, so you're clarifying the story. So the player who said 41 points wasn't exactly accurate. Is that what you're telling us?
No. He actually did me justice by saying 41.
That's some Carolina guys, man. Go ahead,
quick question. Just we're speaking about Michael Jordan. Just quick question. Would you consider Michael Jordan the GOAT?
Ralph, don't do this. We got company. Ralph, don't do this. Ralph, don't do this.
That's a great question, and it's a fair question. But on the other hand, it's an unfair question, meaning this. And I heard Jordan say this himself. It's unfair for him to be nominated or thought about as the greatest when he's not played against the greats in some of the other eras. He's not played against Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, or some of these other guys. We just assume that during his time period, I would say he was the greatest during his time. But I can't take it any further than that because he's not in today's time playing against LeBron and KD, which I think he would still be the greatest, but that's another question. But he's not played in the latter time either, with some of those greats in the earlier times. So I think with each era, there's an evolution of the game. The game changes. The players change with the game. So who knows how he would do today? I think he would fare just fine. I think he'd still be the greatest, but who knows? It's nice conjecture,
He would do okay. He would beat DeMar DeRozan if he played
for
today.
sure.
See, don't fall into that. Mr. Bennett, don't fall into that. He's a LeBron fan. Don't fall into that.
Get that fish hook out of your mouth. Get ready to reel you in, brother.
Hey.
Watch out now.
No, I would never do that to company. We got company. I would never do that to him.
Watch where you step. Now there's a lot of poop around you. Watch where you step.
Yeah. I can tell you this. I've never played against LeBron. I never played against KD. But I have played against Jordan, Magic, Bird, Dominique Wilkins, all those guys that played during my era. And Michael Jordan is the most fiercest competitor I've ever met in my life. And, as far as that goes, I don't see anybody in today's game that can even compare with his fierceness, his tenacity, his wanting the shot at the end of the game. Whether he made it or missed it, he was going to take it. And there was no doubt about it, was going to get the shot. So it was up to the opposing team to figure out how they was going to stop him from making the shot because he was sure going to take it.
Bennett, I always call you Bennett.
Man,
I guess I
thank
should
you
call
so
you
much
Winston.
for that
Sorry
answer.
about that, brother. But like I said, you and I go back a ways. There was somebody you played with who gave you the same respect. And I'm going to ask you if you can guess who that would be.
No, man, ain't no way I could guess.
Okay, that would be your boy, Kenny Skywalker.
Oh, wow. That's high praise coming from him for sure.
I talked to him about when you guys were first come to UK, and he said he had to back you down a few times because you practiced like it was an actual game.
Yeah.
And he told me that you told him, if you're going to lace him up and strap him up, let's go.
Right. Well, that was my mentality. And again, that's my guy, man. I love that guy, man. And, for me to play by his side, it was almost like, I was his protector and everyone else on the team's protected because Kenny, he carried us on his shoulders. He's the guy that's going to go out and get 30 if he had to. But if he missed, I better be there to get the rebound and put it in. And I could say the same about Rex Chapman and some of the other guys that were on our team too. But definitely Skywalker, man. He's the best.
Real quick, I know you ultimately decided to go to UK, and I know you said U of L didn't have a shot at you. So what were some other schools that were recruiting you coming out of high school?
Yeah, all the major schools. If there was a close shot besides Louisville, Kentucky, it was Georgetown. I did visit John Thompson at Georgetown University. I respected everything that he did. I respected, how they played the game. And, wouldn't it be ironic that we'd end up meeting them in the Final Four after visiting there and not choosing them? But a great deal of respect for Georgetown University, Coach John Thompson, and what that program has stood for over the years.
Well, Winston, what was your impression of John Thompson when you initially met him on your first meeting with him?
I thought he was larger than life, man. Just his morals, his values, how he stood up for his race, how, there was no embarrassment to himself or the color of his skin. And he didn't care who he was talking to, white, black, blue. I'm black and I'm proud. And I'm a black person that can read and write and I'm intelligent. All those values, he just embodied that, man. And, I'm still in awe of him today.
Now, I had the pleasure when I was in Atlanta to go visit him up there in D.C. He had a plaque on his desk that said, "To err is human, but to forgive is not my policy." Is that what you saw on his desk when you made a visit with him?
Wow. I can't say I remember that. I'm sure it was probably there. But, man, that's a powerful statement. That sounds like something he'd have on his desk for sure.
Yeah. And that's why he told Allen Iverson to get gone. When he got tired of Allen, he called Allen. The story is he called Iverson in and reminded him of that plaque, and that's what led Allison to leave and go NBA. He said, because like I said, to err is human, but to forgive is not my policy.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, he didn't care who you were, big, small, or indifferent. He had a tendency to treat everybody the same with humility and with respect, and he carried a big whip when he had to.
Just like that. Hey, Mr. Bennett, we're going to take a quick commercial break here on Beyond the Game on WLXU 93.9 FM. When we come back, we'll talk with Mr. Bennett a little bit more. We'll talk to him about his time at UK during their glorious run from 95 to 97, coaching guys like Ron Mercer and all those. I got his name wrong. Ron Mercer. He was one of my favorite UK players. He was one of my favorites. But anyways, we're going to take a quick commercial break on Beyond the Game, WLXU 93.9 FM.
We got to get into it. I got to pick his brain. We got to talk about this situation.
Why does this shit...
Nah, bro, I ain't been to talk to you, bro. I see what you're doing over at Q Walker.
Trying, man.
Nah.
I'm trying.
I ain't not saying that. I see what you're doing.
I'm
over
trying,
there,
bro.
I was proud of you, man.
I'm trying, bro. As a matter of fact...
I'm like, okay, I see. Q would go quiet, and then you pop up with something. It's like, that's where he been in the...
Because I'm in the lab working. I'm in the lab working.
Nah, bro, I was like,
I'm in the lab. Everybody who's tuned in right now, make sure y'all go to the Beyond the Game merchandise store, www.beyondthegameky.com. Go there. We got something for kids, women, men, accessories, whatever you want. It's up in the shop. Make sure you go check that out and shop there and buy something to support Beyond the Game. You digs?
For real, bro. You do all that by yourself? You got somebody? You got a team?
Solo.
Proud of you, bro.
Thank you, bro. Solo. Solo dolo. Took me about, I'll say about a good solid 2 weeks to get everything,
good, bro.
everything up together and running.
Emotion.
Uh-huh.
It's emotion, bro.
And you know,
Once you place the order, how long does it take to get back?
it depends on what it is. Some is 2 to 5 business days. Others it takes a little bit longer to get to you. But man, you know, just something to help distract you, bro. Welcome back to Beyond the Game on WLXU 93.9 FM. We are talking with former assistant basketball coach from UK, Winston Bennett, former NBA player, former assistant coach for the Boston Celtics, Mr. Winston Bennett. Before we get into it, I need everybody to make sure y'all go to beyondthegameky.com, the online merchandise store. We got something for everybody. We got accessories. We got stuff for kids. We got stuff for women, men, whatever you're looking for. Make sure y'all go there and shop at beyondthegameky.com. Now let's get back to our interview with Mr. Bennett. Ralph, you said you had a question for him?
All right, Mr. Bennett. So we got to get into it. Are we going to get back to the past?
Talk to him, Ralph.
Let's get into it.
I'm a UK fan, man. I'm 39 years of life. UK basketball has been everything to me.
To us.
There were some major changes that have been made over the past couple weeks. We got a new coach. But before we get into the new coach, just give me your thoughts on Calipari. I mean, if you look at the first 10 years of his career as far as being the head coach of UK, looking at the resume, it was a pretty good resume. Over the last 5 years, the success wasn't as high as far as advancing in the NCAA tournament and losing to, higher ranked seeds as far as a 14 seed and a 15 seed. So just give me your thoughts on the overall, what you thought about Cal's career here, and do you think that we made the right move in going with Coach Pope? Do you feel that we needed a new voice, or just give me your thoughts on that situation?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank Coach Calipari for his 15 years of service because as a former coach, fans don't understand the amount of energy, the amount of time spent, the sacrifice that is made to do your job as a coach. Now, immediately I can hear voices saying, well, yeah, he makes $8.5 million a year. I think I could do that. But until you sit in that seat, you don't know the pressure of making the call, getting kids on campus, selling the kids, selling the parents, because if anything goes wrong with that kid, the responsibility is yours. And for this guy to come in during a time when we was coming off of Billy Gillespie, I believe, and to resurrect the program, the way he did was just a phenomenal job. I mean, you talk about all the NBA players that he's put in the NBA. I think he's often said, billions of dollars, made collectively by those players and what it's meant to those families. And let's face it, I think everybody on the call here is a minority. A lot of us don't come from, silver spoons. A lot of us come up very humbly, meaning that we don't have much. So to talk about these young men, most of them minorities, if not all of them, who have changed the trajectory of their family is saying a lot. Now, I know the Kentucky fan don't want to hear that. They don't care about that. But from one person to the next person, I think it goes beyond your call of duty to look beyond just their year at Kentucky and look, okay, how can I help prepare them for their life after Kentucky? And that's what he did. And so I've got to be very grateful for that. And in doing that, look at what he's done. Every time one of those kids have gone to the NBA, the first thing they say is University of Kentucky basketball player. And that's publicity in itself. Every NBA draft, he's putting in, 6 players going in the NBA draft in the first round. Man, that's a lot of pride or should be for Kentucky fans or for anybody that, represent Kentucky. At least it has been for me. Now, retrospectively, like you said, looking at the last 5 years, they've not been so well for whatever reason. And I think one of the major reasons and my major fault, if there was a fault against Kyle, was the fact he seemed to put a lot of emphasis in the young high schooler coming in his first year of college. And that young man, as talented as he may be, has to play against men, transfers, 2, 3, 4-year players. And you can see the difference in their bodies. As great as Reed Shepherd was, as great as Dillingham was, there were some games, man, you could just see that they were a little intimidated. Not that their play, showed it, but just their bodies wasn't ready to go up against men. Now they're really ready to go up against men. The great thing about what they're going to do now is that it's going to be all basketball, no classes involved. Their class is going to be the basketball classroom. So they'll be able to make extreme heights in the development of their game. But to get back to your question, I love what Calipari has done. I hated to see him go because I thought that he could make the necessary renovations in his recruiting tactics to where, maybe he can get 2 or 3 high schoolers and have the majority of his team being, guys that were mature, out of the transfer portal, which is, the same thing. I mean, if you're looking for 1-year players, some of them players in the transfer portal, they're going to be 2-year players, 3-year players, and then after that, they're going to be jumping, if you get a good one. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my feeling on it. He's a Hall of Famer to be, for sure. Hated to see him go, but there comes a time, like I think I also heard you say, where there needs to be a new voice. And I think we've got that new voice in Mark Pope, and I think he's going to do an excellent job.
Yes,
well,
sir.
Winston, you remind me again of something Kenny had told me. You talk about men going up against boys. He had told me, I forget which game it was and which year it was, but he said he was watching the teams warm up before the game started. And he said back in the days when you guys played, you can look across that half-court stripe and see fear in the opponent's eyes. And then and you knew they were beat before the ball was thrown up. Did you witness that? Did you have that same thought?
Well, just to piggyback on what Kenny said to you, me coming in as a freshman, just going back to some of our teams at Kentucky, I'm playing with Sam Bowie and Melvin Turpin. Those guys were 4-year players, I think. And I'm looking across, we're in the Final Four, and I'm looking at Patrick Ewing, another guy, has spent, a few years in. Michael Graham and some of the other guys. And you're a freshman, and you're going up against those guys. Now, for me, I had no fear, so it was no problem. So, you fight me, I was going to fight back. But not everybody has that mentality to where they can go into a game if they're playing against someone bigger and stronger. Sometimes a player will melt and not show up off of that. And then there's others that will rise to the occasion. And generally, when you got a young player who just was in high school last year, you don't know which guy you're going to get from night to night. Where if you got a mature player, generally, they're going to show you some consistency of what they've given you in the past. That's the great thing about the portal. You know what these kids have done in the past. Their stats are available. So you know what the potential is for them to give you.
Go ahead, Clay.
Okay, I appreciate your answer. So I was just going to go along with that. So I appreciate your opinion on Coach Cal. So going into the new era, we have Coach Mark Pope in. Just give me your thoughts on, and I say this because I want you to calm some of these UK fans down. The man has been employed at UK as far as the head coach for a week and a half to 2 weeks. I mean, he's having to hire a whole new coaching staff. He's having to revamp an entire team. As far we had no players outside of Perry, the kid that was coming here. So just tell me your thoughts on Coach Pope, and I also want to give me your thoughts on Coach Pope first, because I also want to ask you about the NIL and the transfer portal and how that's affecting, Coach Pope at this time and a lot of the coaches around the nation as far as getting players, not knowing who's going to stay, not knowing who's going to find a reason to go into the transfer portal. I think they said it was like 1,300 kids in the transfer portal. So just give me your thoughts overall on that. I know it's a long, drawn-out question, but just give me your overall thoughts.
No, it's a great question. Immediately what comes to mind is the old saying that Rome wasn't built in a day. But Kentucky's not Rome. Kentucky is Kentucky, and they expect you to build it in a day here. And it's unfortunate because we've been spoiled off of winning from Adolph Rupp to Joe B. Hall to, on the line, Pitino, Tubby, and now Cal. And when you come in to sit in that seat, you know what you're in for. Mark knows what he's in for. Coach Pope knows what he's in for. Having coached Mark on Rick Pitino's staff, I know his work ethic. I know his mindset. First of all, you're not going to meet anyone that's going to outwork him because he's going to work from sun up to sundown. He's going to do everything that's required. This guy's a Rhodes Scholar. You know what I'm saying? He's on our team, we had a bunch of high IQ basketball players. When you look at that 96 roster of Antoine Walker, Tony Delk, Derek Anderson, Ron Mercer, Pope, who else? Shepard. Just a bevy of players, man, that had a high IQ for basketball. So Pope knows what he's in for. I think he's going to do a tremendous job. In terms of the landscape today, I think this is why you saw a lot of the great coaches getting out of the game when they did. From Duke's Coach Krzyzewski, who was a Hall of Famer, majorly successful, to North Carolina's Coach Williams, to Villanova, Jay Wright. Those guys got out in a timely fashion, seeing all this coming with this NIL, paying players. Here's the funny thing about that whole paying players bit. It's something that we would have wished had happened back in our day, but let's face it, it was happening under the table. Teams were doing it. Whether they was giving you a handshake in the bathroom or, not the money that these cats are getting today for most of us, unless you were, like Rex Chapman says, or Rex Chapman,
Winston, I have to be honest with you. We had Dirk Minifield on the air a few weeks ago, and he pretty much said the same thing. You guys were making money, and
of course.
So nobody went hungry and naked.
Hey, Mr. Bennett, we going to take a quick. I want to get some more of your answer from this, but we got to keep the lights on. We got to take a quick commercial break because I also want to know if your pockets got lines. Statute limitations is over. You can admit it now, but we going to take a quick commercial. What'd you say, sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. So we're going to take a quick commercial break on Beyond the Game on WLXU 93.9 FM. When we come back, we will have some more with Coach Bennett, and he'll talk about his time at UK. We'll get into some of his time at the Boston Celtics. We got a lot of stuff. This dude's done a lot in basketball, but we'll get to that when we come back from this commercial break with Coach Bennett.
Yeah, I just got one more question.
Nah, bro, go ahead, do your thing. Do your thing.
Yeah, I like that question. That question had a lot of bucks.
It did. It was hard to ask that question. It's like so many, different points. So I just think the transfer portal, and I think I've never really been in as involved in it as I have since Calipari left. So it's just like, man, bro, is this sustainable? That's the question I want to ask you.
Nice to know they can now make the money above the table, and there's no penalty.
From 10 to 10:30. Come back in. Go to your question. Gilles, welcome back to Beyond the Game on WLXU 93.9 FM. We still have Coach Bennett, former assistant coach, former player at UK, also a former member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, which, you know, the GOAT played for them as well. And he also coached in the Boston Celtics as well. Coach, Mr. Clay, go on. What's your question for Coach Bennett?
So Coach, just staying with the NIL and the transfer portal. So I just want to know, just being a fan and like being involved these past 2 weeks, trying to figure out what's going to happen next, what player is going to go here, what player is going to go there, what players are UK looking at. Do you see the transfer portal and the NIL program being a sustainable thing? Do you think that there's going to have to be at some point be rules and regulations set in place? Like if a player decides to enter the transfer portal and goes to a school, he has to commit to that school for at least 2 years. Just giving you an example. Do you see that happen? Because for me, I just feel like at some point it's getting out of hand. You have basically college free agency going on right now, and players are basically going to the highest bidder. And I just don't see that being sustainable. Just give me your thoughts.
I'm sure the NCAA and the powers that be are sitting around the table daily trying to figure out how to make modifications to the NIL and the transfer portal, both of which are beyond comprehension right now in terms of what players can make. And I'm all for players making money for their services, no different than each one of us getting dressed and going out to work each day and getting paid for our services. They should be and should have been doing that years ago. God only knows how they got away with this for this long. So I'm happy for the players that they're making the money that they're making, but I think you do have to cap it in some form or fashion, because there's some players that are having to take a pay cut to go to the NBA. They're making so much money. I mean, I'm being a little audacious in saying that, but there's guys that are making, $1 million or more a year. I mean, that's unthought of, man. Again, I'm happy for the players, but it's got to breed some animosity on these teams too, because not everybody's making $1 million a year. Comparable players could be making two different salaries. One could make $1 million, one could make half $1 million. What's the boundary? What's the rules here? Why is he making $1 million and I'm making $500,000? Are you basing it on, what he brings to the table, which you think that should be the criteria, how much you bring into the team? But, it's out of control. And then when you look at the transfer portal, like you said, there's no loyalty. A player plays for Indiana 1 year, jumps and goes to Louisville the next year, jumps and goes to Kentucky the next year. And I'm just giving that as an example. I mean, it's just asinine, how this thing is working today. Something has to be done, and I do believe the NCAA will do something. They generally do what they want to do, so surely they around the table talking about this, thinking about ways that they can constructively make this work better for everyone.
Well, Winston, you probably know more about this than I do because you're up there in Louisville and I'm down here in Lexington, and I haven't had a check to thoroughly go through my email. But I understand that Pope went to Louisville and got something from there and brought back to Lexington. Have you heard about that?
He went to Louisville?
Yeah, he got a player from Louisville out of the portal.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I've not heard anything about that. What I've heard thus far, number one, I want to praise him for, and I know we're not talking about this yet, maybe we'll get to it. I want to praise him for the building of his staff, adding Alvin Brooks III, Jason Hart, Cody Fugard, however you pronounce his name, and then Mark Fox. I mean, that's an all-star staff right there. And if you're going to be successful in college basketball, and I say this often, you got to have the Jimmies and the Joes. And it's generally not the head coach that gets the Jimmies and the Joes. It's generally those assistants. The grunt work is done by the assistants. So when you see a successful coach, try to take your eyes off of him just for a moment and see who his assistants are, because those are the ones that's in the ditch every day with those players doing what needs to be done. The head coach will come and close the deal. But in terms of getting that player, locating, where is he at, what does he need, that's those assistants.
Well, you had a great assistant at Kentucky State, Thomas Patterson, who is also a pretty good friend of mine. I'm not going to say pretty good. He's a Well, I'm not going to use that language. I can't do it. But he's a friend of mine as much as you are. Let me say this about him.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
You appreciate. Every time he and I talk, he sings your praises.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much.
So you haven't been the head coach at K-State. If you had the chance, would you come back to K-State and sit on the bench?
I never say never. I try as much as my age will allow now. Hopefully there's a level of maturity there that, I want to be more led by, God and the Spirit rather than just jumping out on things because they present themselves, because there's more than just me. I got a wife to think about. And although my kids are grown, I definitely got to think about mama and how that's going to affect our lives. I heard Tony Delk say this, and it made a lot of sense when asked, would he coach on the collegiate level? And he said, I don't think so. And he said, the reason being is that when you choose to do that, you lose a part of your life. You sacrifice a whole lot. He said, right now, nobody can tell me when to go to my child's recital or when to pick them up from school. But if I were to do that, if I came in as an assistant, that head coach is going to tell me when I can leave to go here, when I can, and that's the same on any job. And he said he likes the level of freedom that he has right now. And I amplify that. And that's not to say I won't get back in coaching, but right now I like where I'm at.
Okay, so you'd have to give it a lot of thought. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And not just a lot of thought, but you'd have to pray on it and let God lead your hand.
Absolutely.
That's the number one thing.
Now, you may or may not know we have a new athletic director at Kentucky State, that being Grant Stepp, who was a native of Versailles, Kentucky. Now, the man that hired you to be K-State's head coach was Derek Ramsey, a fellow UK alum.
That's correct.
What role did he play in bringing you to K-State?
Yeah, great man, Mr. Ramsey. As you talked about Coach Patterson, and I echo those sentiments, I can say the same about Mr. Ramsey. I look at him as not only a mentor, but as a brother figure, because he's led me in so many ways and given me tremendous advice. He's just a wonderful, wonderful person. So love that guy, man. That's my big brother right there. And I got a lot of big brothers. From Jack Goose Gibbons to James Lee. I got a lot of them. So
Goose Gibbons actually happens to be a cousin of mine, so I can relate to you totally about those guys. Goose, James Lee. See, James Lee and I went to high school together here at Henry Clay. So I can speak of all those guys you're talking about. Goose, James, I call him Big Game.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I could call them some other things.
Great people, man. Great people for sure.
See, that's what happens when you know where the bones are buried.
Absolutely.
Coach Bennett, you were talking about the assistant coaches, and, those are the guys who are in the trenches getting these recruits to, possibly come to these schools, and they have the head coach to come close the deal. Speak to me about that 96 team at UK. Many people believe it's the
best
greatest
ever.
Can I get to it, Ralph?
The best ever.
Some people believe that is quite possibly the greatest college team ever assembled. It had 9 guys go pro from that roster. Speak to me not only that team, but how did you get so many guys, the Antoine Walkers, the Ron Mercers,
Walter McCarty?
How did y'all get these guys to commit to UK with that loaded roster?
Well, when you think of what Calipari's done, once he got a few people in the NBA, and how that was like a ripple effect to getting other guys in. And, a lot of people make the mistake of saying that Cal was the first one to send 6 or 7 players to the NBA. And I would question that and say, no, Coach Pitino did that in 96. When you name off those names that you just named, that was 6 or 7 guys, maybe even 8 that went to the NBA that year. When you look at our coaching staff, Jim O'Brien, who was Coach Pitino's right-hand man, who ended up coaching once he left the Celtics for the Celtics and then the Pacers. Then when you look beyond him, who was his assistant? Frank Vogel. So Frank Vogel was our video coordinator, the head coach for the Phoenix Suns right now. I know they're down 0-2, but big up to Frank and what he's done. He also won the championship with the Lakers with LeBron now during the bubble year. So he's been very, very successful. Delray Brooks was on that staff as well. Then we had another guy that's a mayor now and also a coach. His name is George Barber, been coaching for many, many years. So a great, great staff, man. And again, those guys were responsible for bringing those guys in. Back then, we had what was called a restrictive earnings coach, which was the lowest man on the totem pole. That was me in terms of you could only make like $15,000 a year until the NCAA changed that rule. And, you could do on the court coaching, but you could not do recruiting. So it was something that hampered me during that time. But, I think it was in the last year I was there that rule was lifted, maybe the last 2 years, and was able to start recruiting and reaching out to some of these guys. But, that was just phenomenal, man. There was some magic in the air to get all those players because you don't see that very often. Yeah, Kyle has been, instrumental in doing that year after year. But, man, the talent that was on that team, man, yeesh, unbelievable.
Just to real quickly here, you mentioned Pitino and those guys that were on the team that went to the NBA. I want to give props to Coach Joe B. Hall. May he rest in peace. He didn't do bad himself. When you think about the roster you were on with Turpin and Bowie and yourself and some of the other guys. How many guys from your era with Joe B. Hall went to the NBA?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that, but I could tell you this. Coach Hall never gets the respect that he deserves because he followed a legend in Adolph Rupp.
And that's very difficult.
When I think about Bowie and Turpin, of course, NBA players in their own right, and you can argue that if Bowie hadn't had all the injuries with his femur, who knows how good he could have been because he was a 7'1" guy that could step out, could handle, could pass. He could do it all. But it was the injuries and, that got him. And for an athlete, that is the Achilles heel of any athlete. You never know when they're going to strike or if they're going to strike. And that's why you got to strike when the iron is hot. And that's alluding to Reed Shepherd leaving this year. He had to go. If he's going to be a lottery pick 1 to 10, he has to go because if he messes around, stays another year and get injured, man, that's a career down the drain. So you got to strike while the iron is hot. So, yes, I echo your sentiments. Coach Hall did a phenomenal job as a coach. And I'm going to tell you someone else that's not mentioned that's forgotten about. And, again, what do I always tell you when it comes to coaching? Look beyond the coach. Look to the assistants. What about a guy named Leonard Hamilton that was responsible for most, if not all of us, minority players that went to Kentucky? Okay? Coach Hall came in and closed the deal. But it was Coach Hamilton that found us and formed a relationship with our parents and let us know it's going to be all right. We're going to take care of you once you get there. You're not going to be on your own. Oftentimes we at his house, eating at his table. If anything happened, he's there. You know what I'm saying? He was our father figure. So that name is not mentioned enough. Leonard Hamilton at Florida State right now has been there for many, many years and has mentored many, many assistants that have gone on to become head coaches.
Bennett, I got to give Coach Hall a lot of credit. In his latter years of living, he and I live right across the street from each other, and we used to walk in the park together here in Lexington at Kurt Levington Park. I'd get on my bicycle, ride the track, and he'd be jogging. God rest his soul. Yeah. And then I'd stop and walk, and then I stop and get off the bike and walk with him. And I try to pique his brain to tell me some stuff. He always kept his vest closed tight. But he always called me Baby Goose. That's all he would tell me about is Baby Goose, Baby Goose.
Yeah.
Because, with me being kin to Goose Givens, he'd always say, well, Baby Goose, let me tell you this. And he never telling me nothing.
Yeah. He was a great storyteller. He had that radio show, him and Coach Crum. They did a great job, and they was kind of hilarious on their radio show. But what an awesome man. Coach Hall was awesome for sure.
What did you learn from Coach Hall that helped you in your coaching career?
Oh, there you go. Oh,
I heard somebody in the background.
Okay, can you hear us now?
I was asking, what did you take from Coach Hall that helped you in your coaching career and when you became the head coach at K-State?
Yeah, I would say, one, his work ethic. He was a guy also that worked tremendously hard, gave it all that he had. He was a tactician in terms of how he drew up plays, how he utilized. One of the first, I think, to utilize that twin tower concept of Bowie and Turpin, and then he had Phillips and Roby before before those two guys. So he was before his time, in the way he did things. So just an awesome man. Hey man, I know time is rolling. We are gonna talk about Mark Pope, aren't we?
Yeah. Winston, I have one quick story about Joe Hall I need to tell for those listeners out there.
Yeah.
When Bobby Knight slapped him on the back of the head. And a lot of us media guys told Coach Hall that Bobby Knight was a bully. And Coach Hall said Bobby Knight wasn't a bully. He said you got to whoop somebody's derriere to be a bully. And he ain't never whooped nobody's derriere. So I thought that was a very funny story when he told it. He said Bobby Knight ain't no bully.
I disagree. He tried or attempted to be a bully. That's the way his persona was. You know, he tried to intimidate you by his actions. I mean, throwing chairs and all that stuff. I mean, that's the sign of what bullies do. You know, they act out, you know, until you confront them and show them that, hey, you ain't big and bad as you think you are. You know, and oftentimes, and I never liked bullies because I was bullied when I was younger. So when I got big enough, you know, I stopped all the bullying. You know, and I think you have to confront the bully and let it lie where it may, but you got to confront the bully.
Okay, well, you about to say something about Coach Pope.
Yeah.
Let me let you have the floor and go on with Coach Pope. Your thoughts?
Okay, so what's your thoughts on Coach Pope, man?
All right, let's talk about Coach Pope.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, as I spoke to you earlier, you know, I had a chance to coach Coach Pope when I was on the staff with Coach Pitino. He brings an unusual bevy of talent. What I mean by that, I've already told you earlier, he's a Rhodes Scholar, so he's tremendously smart. He understands that he can't do everything. And I think that's why he's put together probably one of the best staffs in America right here. He's showing you just by his staff of how important he understands recruiting is. You know, this Alvin Brooks, who was the assistant for Scott Drew, we know how successful Scott Drew has been at Baylor. I mean, he's turned that program around so much so he was unwilling to leave. That was one of the first on Kentucky's list, was to talk to Scott Drew. Well, instead of getting Scott Drew, how about we take his first-hand assistant that was responsible for all his recruiting. So Alvin Brooks comes in. Man, what a great, great hire that is. We know about Jason Hart, who played at Syracuse, was also head coach of the G League at 19, and also coached at USC. A young guy that's going to have his hands on a lot of talent, you know, has coached a lot of talent already. The kid Cody, Coach Cody, who coached with Pope out there, you know, out in Utah. I don't know a whole lot about him, but obviously, you know, Pope has a lot of faith in him. Mark Fox has been around a long time as a head coach. So, you know, he's got a mixture of young guys with Jason Hart and Cody and even Alvin Brooks. And then you bring in, you know, an old dog like Mark Fox that's been around this game for many, many years. So he's got a well-rounded staff. And then, you know, maybe we'll get a little bit into his recruiting as well. But, yeah.
Y'all UK fans, y'all sound excited about this stuff.
I was going to say, Coach, honestly, as a UK fan, I haven't been this excited about what's next for UK in a long time.
Since 2010.
I think we got spoiled with Coach Cal a little bit. We seen star player after star player coming to Lexington. So, honestly, the excitement that I feel right now with Coach Pope, and like you said, the coaching staff that he's assembled, man, one of the best in the nation, hands down. I don't think recruiting will be an issue at all. I'm excited about Coach Pope's system and the offense that we'll be running this year. So the excitement is at an all-time high for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Here's the thing about any person who starts anything new. It's a crapshoot. None of us know how it's going to turn out. All we do is believe in our faith, believe in the work ethic of the person, and hope that it works out all right. I know his work ethic. I know he's going to give it all he can give. And then we just got to see, you know, how the tree is cut and falls. That's how it's going to lay. I believe he's going to be very, very successful. Only time's going to tell that. But I believe that he will. And speaking of which, man, you know, he got out the gate with this kid, Colin Chandler, who, you know, it was a top 40, I think, when he came out in 2022. And just looking at a little bit of film on him, that kid's very athletic. He shoots the three, can put it on the floor. Here's the other thing I want to mention about Mark Pope. It's going to be different, and I don't think I have to say this, you guys know this, than Calipari, in that he may bring in a different type of player than what we've been used to with Calipari. You know, we've been used to, man, you know, lottery picks from Calipari. coming out of high school, play 1 year, and they're top 10 pick. Well, this player that Pope brings in may be a little bit different. He may be one that's going to have his players stay 2 years or 3 years, some of them, while mixing in, 1 or 2 high schoolers. The kid from Lyon County decides that he's going to stay. There was really nowhere for him to go since, as a Kentucky kid, you dream about playing at Kentucky, nowhere else. So I don't think there was any bones about him leaving, Travis Perry. But some of these other kids that he's going to be able to dip out of the portal, like this Amari Williams, 6'10" kid from Drexel. This kid is a talent, man. He's a deep, 3 years, I think he's won Defensive Player of the Year in that league. So he'll be playing in the SEC now, a little bit different than the CAA. But, he's a talented kid. So I think he's off to a good start.
Well, Winston, you have explained why, talking about for myself, why I am cautiously optimistic about Coach Pope. I wish him well. I wish him a lot of success, but I am cautiously optimistic.
I wish him well too.
Is that fair with me?
I wish UK fans would give him a chance, because I know there's kind of like a civil war going on with UK fans at this present time. And like they alluded to earlier, Coach Ben, I'm a Carolina guy, and we just got Hubert Davis 3 years ago, and I'll be honest, I was unsure about the hire, because I was like, I don't know. But then he leads us to a national championship game in his first season. Now, I'm not saying Coach Pope will do that, but I'm just saying, like, give the guys a chance. Like, see what they can do.
I give them a chance, but I can't help it. Like Bennett said, it's a crapshoot, so I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, and it's like that for anyone, except that, Calipari wasn't Calipari when he first came out of the gates. Pitino wasn't Pitino when he first came out of the gates. It takes time for these guys to get better at their craft. He's been at BYU forever. I don't know how many years, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know. But it takes time. Each year you continue to get better. You know the nuances of the game, and you get better just like you do at radio and the things that you guys do. The more you do it, the better you get at it when you want to be great at something. And Pope wants to be great. He doesn't just want to be mediocre. He just don't want to come in and be average. No, he wants to be great. He learned from a great coach, at least one of his mentors playing for him, and that's Rick Pitino. This guy was a Tasmanian devil. I'm going to just tell you, and I mean that in the most respectful way, and that he expected greatness from everyone, from his players, his staff, support staff, everyone. If he didn't get it, he would fire you. I could count the amount of times he fired me because I could get 6 a.m.
What was that?
I would get there at 6 a.m. and he said, "You fired." What do you mean? I'm here when you told me to be here. Well, what I didn't understand was 6 a.m. meant 5:45 a.m.
Absolutely.
And I had to learn that, man. But, he was gracious, too, because he would always call me back. I remember this one time where, we're in practice, and I get the phone call from my wife that, hey, she's in labor. My wife's about to have my daughter, Jasmine. So I had to go to coach and say, man, my wife is in the hospital, man. We're ready to have our baby. Can I go, be with my wife and new daughter? Yeah, you can go, but just be back here in a couple hours. So I go and be with my daughter, man, see the birth of my daughter, and at the 2-hour mark, he called me on my cell phone. That's crazy. Why aren't you back here? The office?
So Winston,
I'm like, this cat is crazy. Right? But that's how he's able to put guys in head coaching positions like a Mark Pope, like a Kevin Keats at North Carolina State that done so well in the tournament this year, and just on down the line. He's got so many assistants that became heads that is crazy. So, that's who Pope learned from. So I expect nothing less than greatness from him.
Yeah, and
three time zones: early, late, and on time.
Early, late, and on time.
If you're on time, you're late.
Exactly.
And if you're late, you're fired.
Yep, stay like that.
That's it.
Hey, and Coach, and to going back to the Mark Pope thing and people not wanting to give him time and UK fans just being crazy and just instant gratification with everything that happens, you got to think, man, he was at BYU. I mean, think about that school and the players that he could actually recruit to that school. It just wasn't the caliber players that he's going to be able to bring in the UK. So
and the resources.
So I just want you to tell our UK fan base, be patient. Give this man time. Things are going to be okay.
let patience have a perfect work. It takes time. If you're going to be great at anything, there was somebody who said, and I don't remember who the author of this quote was, says that overnight success takes 30 years. Now, obviously, he ain't got 30 years. He might not have but a couple of years. But my point in saying that is you got to give a person time. Yes. You know, we saw the situation here in Louisville with Kenny Payne and how that went down after 2 years. Yes. Now, obviously, he didn't make enough progression to keep his job. I don't think Pope will be that way because they came out of two different pedigrees. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Pope, you know, again, came from that Pitino line, which has been very, very successful. You know, and then we won't talk about Kenny Payne's line, but obviously it makes
talk about it, Coach.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference is all I'm saying. Kenny Payne is a great young man, great coach. It just didn't work out. He got into a situation that was just horrendous and everything that Louisville's been under in the past, 5 years or more. It was just an unbearable, untenable situation. However, I think their new coach is going to do great. He's a guy full of energy, just like Mark Pope.
I agree with that.
Straight like that. Well, Coach Bennett, thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. That was so much more we wanted to get into.
Much more. We need another hour.
Man, is it over?
Man, it's over. That's how
you can call back next week.
You're more than welcome to call back.
Hey, Bennett, you know what they say? Time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely.
It does.
Man, I wanted to talk. I wanted to hear some stories about the '96 team because me and my co-host Ralph, we didn't even know Frank Vogels was on the coaching staff.
I learned something new today.
So we wanted to get that. We wanted to
coordinator, man.
We wanted to talk about your year at the Boston Celtics. We want to talk about your NBA playing career. You are more than welcome to call back to Beyond the Game anytime you want, my guy. Anytime. But we do appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time today and rehashing some of these stories, Coach Bennett. Is there anything you want to talk about or anything you want to say before we get up out of here?
Man, just thank you. I appreciate what you guys are doing for the community and your show. You never know whose lives you're changing by just talking sports. Sometimes we don't give enough credence to what people do. Sports are a big part of our lives, man, and it gives us an opportunity to get away from our real life, if not just for an hour or just 2 hours watching a game. We're able to escape the daily grind. So I appreciate what you guys do, man. Keep on doing what you're doing. God bless you guys.
Let me cut you off real quick. I want to say this real quickly. I'm very fond of Thomas Patterson. I'm not Thomas Patterson, Jamal Jackson over there at K-State. And he's very fond of you, too. That's one of your players, right?
That's one of my former coaches.
That's right.
He was a manager.
I remember those days. He and I talk about you often and very fondly. But I say that to say this. If for some reason the bottom should fall out on him, I'm going to be talking to AD Step about bringing you back to the bench.
Oh, man. Well, number one, the bottom's not going to fall out. That's my man. I support him all day long to my last breath. He's a great young coach doing great things and has done great things, and hopefully will continue to do so.
Let him know that you sent your blessings.
We appreciate you, Coach.
We appreciate you, Coach Bennett. Thank you for giving us your time today, my man.
Thanks, Ralph. Thanks, Frank. Thank Oscar. Thank you, guys.
No problem. That was Coach Bennett, from a former UK player, former UK coach, former Boston Celtics assistant coach, former K-State head coach. I think he also coached a team in the mid-continental as well. He's been all over. I'm going to see if we can get him back, because I'm pretty sure he got so many more stories to tell. But anyways, we appreciate everybody who tuned in via Facebook Live, all the lives. We appreciate everybody who tuned in and listened over the radio waves. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, KY Beyond the Game. Make sure you download the podcast on all major podcast streaming platforms. And also, make sure you walk, crawl, get over to the Beyond the Game merchandise store. Get on www.beyondthegameky.com. Get in there, get yourself something, get your son, your daughter something, get your significant other something, get whoever something, get a surprise gift for somebody. Just make sure you shop at the store. But we get ready to get on up out here. As always, treat somebody how you want somebody to treat your mama. We up at this thing, y'all. Peace.